really about what genuine partnership means in practice and how collaboration can drive climate action and energy transition in the Pacific. At a COP where there's been a particular focus on Indigenous knowledge and Indigenous solutions and Indigenous voices, I just want to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and the connection of Indigenous people everywhere to land, to ocean, to waterways, and extend respect to those Indigenous people who are with us today. I'm Will Nankervis. I'm our Ambassador for Climate Change, and we're really lucky to be joined today by Minister Chris Bowen, Australia's Minister for Climate Change and Energy, and of course Tuvalu's Minister for Home Affairs, Climate Change and the Environment, someone who's known very well in this pavilion and right across COP, Dr. Maya Natalia. So we all know that the Pacific region is at the front line of climate change. It's the region that's contributed the least, but is feeling some of the worst impacts. But also the region that's shown amazing leadership and is showing amazing leadership and resilience in looking for climate solutions and advocating globally on climate. So nowhere is the importance of listening more critical, more vital. And today is an opportunity. We've got a great panel for you, but an opportunity to hear from those who are driving climate action, both at home and internationally. So we'll start by hearing from our ministers, and I'll hand the microphone to Minister Chris Bowen. Thank you, Minister.
Well, thank you, Ambassador, and I also want to share with you and acknowledge any First Nations peoples here today, and obviously acknowledging the First Nations, Indigenous people of the beautiful area we're in here in Brazil. Well, I'm delighted to join with my buddy, Minister Miner, to kick this high-level panel off. You've got a series of great panellists, so we won't take too much of your time. And I know Minister Miner and I have other meetings and negotiations to get to after this. But this is an important gathering because really when you think about the partnership between Australia and the Pacific, it's core of everything we're doing here over this week. Absolutely core. It drives me, it drives our government, it drives our country to be in full lockstep partnership with the Pacific at every level. And that means practical partnership. As I said at a similar event last night, you know, the Pacific's emissions are a tiny, tiny proportion of the world. We know that. We know that. But every tonne counts. But also assisting the Pacific in the transition, which leads to cheaper energy and more reliable energy, is an important part of what we do as well, because, you know, diesel supplies can be cut off by geopolitical circumstances. Nothing can stop the flow of sun to Tuvalu or Samoa or any other country in the Pacific. And it's often struck me as ironic on my trips to the Pacific to walk past diesel generators and to go to, as I went to Tuvalu with Minister Miner a couple of months ago, to the main power station and see how it's running on fossil fuels, that there's got to be a better way, and there is a better way. And that requires very practical partnerships. Now, this time last year in Baku, I announced two things. RPET, to build capability and skills and work together and share learnings, and Renew Pacific. And 12 months later, I'm very pleased to give you a little bit of a project progress report, because they're both going okay. We've signed 3 MOUs now under RPET with Tuvalu, Marshall Islands and Palau. That's our governments working together on how we build the skills necessary, because this is not simple work, highly technical work. It's not straightforward to integrate high degrees of solar and storage into energy systems that were built many years ago. So that's really working. And for representatives of other governments here, come talk to us if you'd like to sign an RPET agreement, because you'll find us very willing partners to extend this even further through the Pacific. And then Renew Pacific, which is the more practical program on actual projects to help decarbonise and get better energy for schools and hospitals and community centres. $75 million project. And I'm pleased to update you that we've approved and are progressing 6 projects already, which account to just a bit over $21 million. In Vanuatu, for example, we have the Director General with us, I understand we're about halfway through the rolling out of the project for support for the health system and hospitals at Sanmar. That's already underway. So in that, just that 12 months, we've made some pretty good progress, I think, but much more to do. And I think if we're going to highlight the Pacific in the world, as we hope to do in 12 months' time and intend to do, then it's even better if we've got a good story to tell about practical implementation and practical support for the Pacific. And I'm pleased also to announce today the next step, that I've approved an allocation of $1.15 million to organisations in the Pacific working on this very project, including the Pacific Community, the Office of the Pacific Energy Regulator, to ensure that we are giving every support possible. So I was sitting next to Coral just before I got up, and I said, I bought you $1 million, Coral, and she almost fell off the chair. It's not for your personal bank account. It's for the organisation. You have to share it with a couple of other organisations. But we think it's a useful contribution to what you do. So I'm very pleased to join with Mina in kicking you off on this very important high-level panel that you have, led by Ambassador Nankervis. You also have Ambassador Davies, Australia's ambassador to Brazil, here with you, which is, I think, an indication of how seriously we take this and what an important project it is. So thank you for joining us today, and all the best for a very important panel.
Well, thanks very much, Minister Bowen, including for that update on RPET and Renew Pacific. And thanks for the $1 million for Coral, not just for Coral, of course. So without further ado, as I mentioned, he's well known to all of you, but I'll give the floor to Minister Mina. Thank you, Minister.
I was just going to ask, where's my 1 million? Excellencies, colleagues and friends, thank you so very much, Minister Bowen, for having me. It is important that we are all here to discuss a few things that are so crucial and important for the survival of our people in the Pacific. Tuvalu welcomes the Australia-Pacific Partnership for Energy Transition because it offers real and practical value. Our energy systems are under pressure. Our resilience is stretched, and we need support that works on the ground, not just well-written concepts on paper. APET is a direct response to that need. Its mission is simple: help Pacific nations plan and deliver their energy transition and meet their NDCs. For Tuvalu, this mission aligns with our national priorities. Our infrastructure is fragile. Our dependence on imported fuel is costly. Climate impacts and unreliable shipping, and of course unreliable shipping routes disrupt our grids every year. Our community feels this pressure every day. I am convinced that APAT, practical tools and skills, respond to real problems. At UNGA 80 this year, our Prime Minister was able to launch our NDC 3.0. This is our strongest commitment yet. It reflects our belief that a livable future is possible. We pledge to cut 100% of electricity sector emission by 2035. We pledge to pursue a zero carbon development pathway by 2050. We made this commitment because we believe ambition still matters. But let us be honest, the world current NDCs fall short of the 1.5 threshold. The gap is widening, not closing. This worries us deeply. Small island states like mine contribute almost nothing to global emissions, yet we are doing our share with limited means. We raise our ambition because we know the cost of inaction. We raise it because every fraction of the degree matters for our very survival. This is why the APAT partnership is so important to us. It strengthens our policies. It improves our reliability of our renewable energy systems. It builds a skilled workforce that understands the latest technology. It embeds long-term capabilities in Tuvalu rather than dependency. That is how strong, durable systems are created. This is how communities gain confidence in their future. So I applaud Australia for this initiative. And I must stress, we want this work to move through existing systems in Tuvalu. This ensures long-term stability, local ownership. Ownership is important, and results that endures. And here I want to mention the Tuvalu Survival Fund, Tuvalu's own creation, which is governed by an act of parliament and that is meant to expedite the delivery of support, reaching small communities and social groups in Tuvalu. We applaud Australia's leadership on this climate space, including its bid to host COP31 with the Pacific, and we really want that to happen. I also believe this partnership can help Australia as much as to help Tuvalu. Stronger Pacific energy system mean a stronger region. APEX allow Australia to demonstrate real leadership as it prepares to co-host COP31 with the Pacific, and we must secure this at the earliest possible. It showcases technical competence, genuine partnership that will support the Pacific, especially a country like Tuvalu. Thank you so very much.
Well, thanks very much, Minister Minor. A really important voice for our region and voice globally. Always, really important to hear your words and your voice on these issues. And thanks very much for outlining Tuvalu's priorities, a little bit about the partnership, the RPET partnership, and really emphasising the importance of local ownership for Tuvalu and how we're progressing that together. So we'll move on to the panel shortly, but I know the ministers are very busy and we'll have to move on. So I wonder if we might just have a quick photograph with the panel members and ministers before ministers have to move on. Okay, so now we move to the panel segment, and we have a really great panel. I'm really excited to hear from them. So the panel is Coral Pasisi, Director of Climate Change and Sustainability at the Pacific Community. Please, round of applause for Coral. Thank you. Director of Helper 1 Operations of Respond Global Vanuatu, Dr. Basil Leodoro. And Ingrid Ludberg, Assistant Secretary, International Climate and Energy, DQ. Welcome, Ingrid. So welcome to all the panelists. Thanks for joining us. I think we'll really get started. And for the first question, which is the first two questions, will be to all of you. So we'll go one by one, maybe starting from you, Coral, and then we'll throw the questions over to the audience. So the first question is, keen to discuss how Australia-Pacific partnerships uniquely advance action on climate change and the energy transition in the region. And can you tell us about some of the barriers and some of the enablers to this? Thanks, Coral.
Thanks. Thanks so much, Ambassador, for the question and for the invitation to join this important conversation. So as a typical island girl, I have to start with a story. And I think our ministers both sort of outlined the challenges that we have and the reason why it's so critically important to move to renewable energy. So as small island states, of course, we want the rest of the world to move to renewable energy because that will help to solve the problem that we're facing. But for small island states, moving to renewable energy is such a critical thing, right? The fuel bills are crippling government budgets now. And that is a really a big challenge. It's a challenge because the resources that countries have to draw on for adaptation and addressing loss and damage are becoming more and more finite. The other big challenge, of course, is that ships transport fuel and they store fuel on the edge of our islands because to pump fuel further in country and store it there is a very big expense. So all of the critical infrastructure, the bulk procurement of fuel sits in the red zone of countries around the region. My own country had a Category 5 cyclone that wiped that fuel depot out completely. And overnight, it doubled the cost of power. This is 20 years ago, and it has never recovered because now we have to transport petrol and diesel in baby vans and store it up on the higher shelf. And this is going to continue to increase into the future. Renewable energy and renewable energy storage systems can be placed in much safer areas. So it's really critical that we shift to renewable energy. It makes economic sense and it will help with resilience. So going to the question of the partnership with Australia, I think the Minister just outlines some fantastic commitments that are practical. We have this issue of the Trinity, essentially. We need access to appropriate technology and the capacity to manage that technology. We need the right regulatory arrangements so that we can move out of fossil fuel and really embrace renewable energy. And then we need the finance. We need it to come in a long-term commitment, not short-term projects that once you've run out of money, there's no more maintenance to that equipment, etc., etc. And I think the commitment that Australia has made with these two big investments, but also the $1 million that unfortunately doesn't come to me personally, but goes to the Office of the Pacific Energy and Regulators Alliance, is really going to help with the long-term support needed to underpin the transformation of regulatory environments that will ensure that renewable energy and energy efficiency is something that is ingrained for the long term. I think the other key thing for us is the investment that Australia has made in the Pacific NDC hub. So that is a hub that the Pacific owns, that is funded by Australia right up until 2031 and some other partners, and that allows our countries to draw down on technical expertise that they otherwise wouldn't be able to have in every individual country. And this is a critically important service and shared regional capability that will back countries up as they are taking their journey in renewable energy. And Australia's investment in that really changes the way that we can build our regional architecture and get in behind countries and support that long-term capability in rolling out renewable energy. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Will, for this opportunity, and Ambassador Will, and thank you all for being here to listen to this panel discussion. I have to admit it's a little bit overwhelming. Just 2 weeks ago, I was part of a launch on the northernmost province of Vanuatu with the High Commissioner of Australia to Vanuatu, the Minister of Climate Change, the Minister of Health, launching the partnership between Respond Global Helper One and the Australian government through Renew Pacific, launching one of our achievements, which was to install a 15,000 watt new solar system for a provincial hospital that had never had it before, called Quatvice Hospital. And then, as part of the support, delivering a new X-ray and ultrasound machine, amongst other medical equipment. Immediately after the launch, I was called to look at 17 X-rays that had been done during the week. And the day after the launch, 3 patients were medevaced for surgical treatment at the referral hospital. And then 2 weeks later, I'm sitting here talking with you all distinguished guests. I'm delighted to have our Director General of the Ministry of Climate Change, Mr. David Gibson, here, and his directors from Climate Change and Energy, and Director Posikai from the Ministry of Health, who have been crucial partners in our work in Vanuatu. I'm normally on the implementation side of things, and so please forgive me if my language is a bit rustic, but I think from a health standpoint of view and an implementer standpoint of view, there is a lot of language at COP that is very, that's all it is language. And we would like to see a lot of that being translated into action, as Coral has said. I think the time for trusting local leadership of our ministries and our governments and our departments, and the time for committed partnership, as Australia has shown on multiple occasions, and we hear it today with the commitment to by Australia to SPC and the Pacific Energy Partners, but also I think translating that into practical action. I think that's going to be key for any partnership to be effective. And I just want to highlight the fact that I left the operating room at Villa Central Hospital and joined Respond Global and Helper One because of the need to address the climate threat urgently. We were operating on patients and hearing the stories of how far they had to travel and why their delay to seek surgical care was affected by changing rainfall patterns that affected the rise in the river, the water levels. We were hearing stories about the outbreaks of scabies, and the medical journals will tell you that scabies outbreaks occur when the weather changes and it gets colder, and people are not having as many showers as they would like. They are hogging the blankets and the clothes that they're wearing. That's all in the literature. And all of these changes are affecting the one single surgical patient standing, lying on the bed in front of me. And that got me thinking into why are we here at the bedside when we should be out there intervening. And I'm proud that I can say that Vanuatu has a national energy roadmap, that Vanuatu has the framework in place already with national adaptation plans. Director Posikai launched the Health National Adaptation Plan at this COP recently. And these frameworks are what are holding us to the NDC and how we can achieve the goals set in the Paris Agreement. You right? It's not the 1 million. But
Luckily, we have a doctor.
we have a doctor. But with all of these national frameworks, the gap for us in the Pacific and small island states, and I'm sure other countries, is connecting those frameworks to what is being seen at the community level. And I'm proud to say that's where Respond Global and Helper One come in as a marine vessel that allows us to visit every inhabited island in Vanuatu, that allows us to carry a multi-sectoral team of not just health and climate change and meteorology, but also other partners and other sectors in the country. And this has only been made possible because of these strong partnerships with Renew Pacific, with the Australian High Commission in Vanuatu, with the government of Vanuatu, with private philanthropy, and with Respond Global itself. And I think this is key for us, is working with these regional partners, but also at the local level, having implementing partners that are able to carry out. And I've talked about it a lot on many forums, but overcoming that first logistical challenge, as Coral has said, it's overcoming that first logistical challenge that sets us on the road to mitigation and to adaptation measures for our community. So I think that's where I'd like to start off this panel discussion. Thanks, Ambassador.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador, and thank you, Dr. Basil and Coral. I'm delighted to be here. I'm filling in for my colleague David Higgins, who is terribly sick, and apologies for my husky voice because I've been doing too much shouting this week to try and be heard. But my name's Ingrid Lundberg. I look after areas in our international climate space, and one of the parts of my responsibilities are to do with our Pacific partnership, so the work that we do in partnership with the Pacific. So what I'd like to kind of delve a little bit into is this idea of what makes a partnership a genuine partnership. What does it mean to do something in a way that is genuinely designed together, that meets needs that are sort of the real and immediate needs of communities, countries, etc. And I think it's something that historically we as governments, but also at all levels, haven't necessarily gotten quite right. It's something, there's been a lot of criticism of the way in which, we all governments have approached partnership and kind of missed the mark. And I think we're very focused and very, very lucky to have amazing colleagues, like some in the room today, some of my Pacific colleagues here listening in, where we are able to come together and start from the very beginning without any preconceived ideas about what it is we're going to make happen, what the need is, but actually coming together and starting from basics and going, what is the need? What do we urgently need to make happen? And what kind of outcome do we collectively want to have? What do we want to make change by doing this work together? And then what skills are you able to bring to the table, and what do you already know, and what skills might we have that we could share, and how together, through the collective strength of our respective areas of knowledge and expertise, can we do something really great that moves the dial, that improves opportunities, that creates diversified and distributed electricity, for instance, in places that haven't had it before, or where there's been a high degree of dependence on shipping of oil and gas in. So I think there is such an incredible opportunity in the renewable space. As the Minister has said, it's clean, it's fast, it's more affordable, and it's also, I think, one of the most powerful things in the context of the Pacific is that it's able to be infinitely more distributed than with traditional forms of power, which means that you can sort of move across islands and be very effective in the way that you're able to produce electricity in ways that was historically much harder. That's not to say that it's easy, though, and I think, the Minister has pointed to the fact that we across government, so DFAT colleagues and DQ, work very hard on making sure that the funding is directed into partnership in places where it's most needed. And the APAT project that the Minister referred to is one of those initiatives where it really is about partnering together on what are the grassroots needs, what are the most immediate needs, and how do we fill those needs through partnership with capacity building and exchange of technology and infrastructure and capability, but in the ways where they're most needed.
Well, thanks very much, panel. I think, Coral, we would have been disappointed if you didn't start with a story, but I think the stories that you and Dr. Basil have told are really very powerful, drawing us to what's happening on the ground, Dr. Basil evoking the operating theatres and the real medical conditions. It really drives us home the kind of impact in communities that these partnerships can have. And Ingrid, thanks for focusing in on this question of what makes a genuine partnership. And for the second question, I wanted to build on that and ask the question, how do we make sure our partnerships are regionally coordinated and locally owned and driven by communities? So, Coral.
Thank you so much. That's a big question. Our Pacific region is probably one that has the most complicated or complex regional architecture, which is not just secretariats, right? It's the partnership of countries that come together in 8 different arrangements every year, often quite many times a year, to agree on what their priorities are collectively. And they do that through SPC in about 8 different technical areas, from fisheries to agriculture to health to energy to water. And so that is a very big regional architecture for countries to service. And I say that really honestly because I come from the smallest country in the Pacific. To effectively engage in all of that architecture and make sure that it is serving our best interest as a small country is not an easy task, and it's a big sacrifice that countries make all the time. And so our regional architecture has to be fit for purpose. It has to be lean. It has to focus on where countries don't have individual capability to provide their services, and really pull where there is greater gains in collectively sharing. And I think this is why our leaders have called for the review of the regional architecture several times, and our members constantly asked us, are you efficient? Are you servicing us in the way that we need to be doing? And so I think that partnership arrangement is very mature in the Pacific, and it's a long-standing one, right? It's 78 years old. Since the end of the Cold War, we were established for some of these reasons. So I think we have paved a trusted arrangement at that regional level. However, in the same period of time, and our countries range from 62 years old and self-governing to about 24 years old. They have matured significantly and built significant capability at country level. And sometimes we're not matching that all that well, because when you move a big regional architecture in one direction to build capability, it's hard to stop that, right? If countries start developing that capability, then we've got redundancy in the system that we need to switch out. And of course, it's the regional that needs to switch out. We need to empower countries. And so we need to have that very constant, strong relationship. And that's not an easy process. But I think when you focus on things that Director Basil has just talked to, it's the face of change, right? How do we make sure that power gets to communities so that doctors don't have to step out of the operating theatre to fix the power connection to make sure that operations can actually happen? And I think what we've been doing for a long time is focusing on the top end of the finance and what can sometimes be the soft support of frameworks and strategies. And we forget that at the country level, we need to move what is currently some of the world's worst situations in access to power, in access to water, in access to sanitation, and those are the fundamental baseline resilience of any community, without even the challenge of climate change on top of that. When I look at the example of health, we have some examples where we've put in telehealth centres in remote islands in the FSM, because you can't have doctors out in the remote areas, so the telehealth systems are powered by solar power and they link to Starlink, right? So there's sufficient bandwidth for telehealth. When that was set up, at the time there was a school with an open concrete platform and one tin shack and one light bulb. They now have this, they use the same infrastructure that telehealth set up, and now they have access to the best education in the world remotely. And they have sufficient power to ensure that they can study well into the night if they want to as well. So there are so many multiple benefits by opening up renewable energy access into communities. And I think we should really consciously look at the critical way in which that is lifting the development agenda and the resilience agenda in health, in education, in access to water, in the storage and preservation of food, and so forth. And I might just finish by saying, 30 years ago we could sell a ton of fish and we could buy about 8 barrels of oil. Today we sell a ton of fish and we can probably buy maybe 1.5 barrels of oil. Our buying capability to that fuel, which is a sunset fuel, is also completely bottoming out. So we need to switch this. This doesn't just make environmental sense. It doesn't just make access sense and durability. It absolutely makes economic sense. And if it can make economic sense for small countries that are twice as isolated by air, sea, and digital technology, then there's no excuse for other countries in the rest of the world not to switch from fossil fuel to renewables. Thank you.
I think Carol has summarized it very well there. But I want to I want to bring in a bit of reflection here to answer your question, Will, in that the, the highest form of respect that you could show a partner in the Pacific is to listen to their leaders. And when I say leaders, I mean from the government, DG, director level, to the managers, to implementing partners who are on the ground in the field, all the way down to our chiefs and our women and youth leaders and our church leaders in the communities. And there is one aspect just sitting here right now that comes to mind, and that aspect is listening. In all of our discussions in the Pacific, there is no noise, people making noise around you. It's a quiet, secluded place where we can listen to our leaders speak, and we walk out knowing what our role is. And in fact, it's disrespectful to be speaking and making noise while our leaders are talking. And this is almost how we feel in the Pacific, I think. There's a lot of noise. We're trying to speak, but there's a lot of noise, and no one seems to be listening. And I believe that's the first step in sustainable partnerships going forward, but also making those partnerships have an impact, a direct impact on all of the priorities and all of the NDCs that we can set up for ourselves, and achieving all of the frameworks and plans that we set for ourselves is listening to our national and our provincial and our community leaders, because they know us the best. There are nuances in our Pacific cultures that will stop a program in its track. Well-intentioned program, but there are nuances that will stop it. We want to relocate a health facility, but you didn't know that health facility was set up by a missionary in the 1800s, and there's no way that you're going to relocate that health facility. There, you have to find another way around it. There are partners who are building beautiful, well-equipped, cyclone-proof, earthquake-resistant health facilities 10 meters away from a river that regularly overflows. And these are examples of our leaders not being listened to. In 2014, when the Lancet Commission released its paper on the state of global surgery, and they came and presented to a group of Pacific surgeons at the Royal Australasian College of Surgeons. The only question, and they talked about what they found around the whole world and what we need to put in place to be our national surgical plans, our national obstetrics and anesthetic plans. This time it's emergency and critical care plans. The only question in my mind at that time, having come from Vanuatu, having just responded to tropical cyclones, was, did you consider climate change in all of your questions and your discussions? And I remember the lead author just replying honestly that no, they did not consider climate change in any of their discussion. This is a Lancet Commission that used 2,000 authors to bring together the best information and publish it. And you can look at that paper, but it's now come to the fore. And while, as Coral has said, we want to have leadership that doesn't leave redundancies and gaps, I really don't see any other way. We need the partners that are on the ground. We need to move our chess pieces around. We have to. We need to have trusted partners like Australia. We need to have programs like Renew Pacific that actually allow the local leaders to carry out their duties. I'm very proud of our Respond Global team. In 7 months, we've been able to install and refurbish 34 health facilities in 27 different islands in Vanuatu, 23 different islands in Vanuatu, different area councils. And that's only because of overcoming the logistical challenges with a vessel like Helper One, a marine vessel, but also having the support of the national government, DG, the directors, who are saying, this is our priorities. Thank you for coming along. This is how we can support you, and Respond Global and Helper One, Australian High Commission, Renew Pacific, saying we can achieve this year, And maybe in the long term we can do a lot more. And that's what I believe, and why I'm still passionate about the work that we're doing. Um, the final thing I would say, as Coral also highlighted, is that helping one sector in the Pacific has flow over effects that you would never have dreamed about. Um, being able to support one single health facility with installing the light not only allows the midwife to deliver babies after dark and treat emergencies after dark instead of the kerosene lamp or the mobile phone torch to deliver, but it also allows the school to power its Wi-Fi and be able to on to education and have effects there. And it allows the water team to come and connect up to use the power as well for the pumps. There are so many flow over effects, and we won't be able to capture all of them in a 1 hour panel discussion, but the stories of the positive is there, and time for action is now.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, to be honest, I feel like Dr. Basil and Coral have done an extraordinary job of, showcasing and talking through architecture and, the elements that work in regional partnerships, but also the need to listen at the community level. I think it's as true as ever. I think we are very genuine in the way we want to continue to do that. There is a need for regional architecture to amplify, and we are stronger together by working together. But if you do that at the expense of listening to the specific needs of communities, there's no one part of the Pacific that is exactly alike with another, just as the Torres Strait is radically different to Tasmania in Australia. That you need to be being specific to the area as well as unifying and applying the strength when that's relevant. Thank you.
Thanks. We're running short on time, but I didn't want to cut any. There was so much wisdom in what everyone was saying. I didn't want to cut anyone short, but we'll probably have time for a couple of questions. So over to the audience. Do people have questions? We might collect a couple. DG.
Yeah, just 3 points. Number one, thank you for the presentations here. Thank you to the Helper One and Response Global for the initiative that is done in Vanuatu. I will reiterate this. Number one, the Vanuatu government has a national energy roadmap. And then number two, we have established what we call the National Clean Energy Fund. This is a local financial mechanism at the local level to support the National Energy Roadmap. And through this mechanism, we partnered with Helper One, Renew Pacific, and roll out these activities on the ground, these renewable initiatives. And finally, I think at the global level, it's very difficult when you discuss finances. But this is an example of how mechanisms at the local level can help, can work, and now support our renewable energy ambitions.
Thanks very much, DG, for those important points. I'll just check if we have another question from the audience. If not, I'll probably hand over to the panel members to just give any final comment that they would like to make. Floor is open. Going once, going twice. Okay, Coral.
Very quickly, just to pick up on our Director General's very important point. Our Pacific countries can't access the multilateral funds for energy because the investments in saving a ton of carbon in Pacific Island countries is too high. Yeah, and it makes no difference really because we already have such low carbon pollution happening. So we are not attractive. So that makes it very difficult for these global funds to deliver climate finance from mitigation to the energy transition for Pacific Island countries. And it's why the point that the Director General made is so important. Our own countries, like Vanuatu, has established things like NELED that they themselves have built because they can't access these funds. So we just need partners, to put their money into these, support them so it reduces the transaction costs. See, whenever we talk about money, this happens. Meet the communities and countries where they are. it's not easy developing a trust fund. I know, I've been through it, and it's but once you've done that as a country and a community, it's fit for your purpose. And partners need to come and put their money into that. Instead of 50 cents coming from 16 different sectors, just put it into these funds and trust the community and the country that they know what they're doing. And that, I think, is a true embodiment of partnership, and it would help us get over this challenge of access to climate finance. Thank you.
Thank you. My last comment will be that the local solutions and the national framework is there. As DG has highlighted, our National Green Energy Fund is crucial to how we deliver on the activities, the mitigation, climate adaptation activities that we carry out. And they're a crucial part in this. I believe that the trust that we have to place in our national finance facilities, in our national leaders, and then the provincial and local leaders is going to be key moving forward with partners like Australia. And I want to encourage us to continue to have that trust, and we will see the results. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say that I feel really optimistic about the future. I feel like we are in a really good place to work together, and that the momentum is there. We have a long way to go, and there's a lot to do, but I do just feel like in partnership together, we are going places, and I'm excited about the future, including of a renewable Pacific.
Well, thanks to a great panel for really powerful stories and messages for us all. I think, Dr. Basil, you really highlighted the importance of listening, and I think there was a lot of wisdom in what you all had to say, and I think we were listening very, very carefully. And I can assure you that Australia will continue to listen as we build true partnerships, as we seek to address the challenges in the region together. I'd like to thank again our ministers, Minister Bowen and Minister Mai Natalia, for being with us. And huge thanks, and I'm sure people will put their hands together for Coral Pasisi, Basil Ledoro and Ingrid Lundberg for a really fantastic discussion. Thank you very much to everyone for being here.